This conference will now be recorded.
Good morning, everybody. So today we're going to do quadratic equation. And let me just summarize what this is, first of all. The quadratic equation is this equation right here. Yeah? And it's quite long. All right. What is it used for? It's used for when you're trying to solve a quadratic equation and you can't figure out what the numbers were. Yeah? I call it the equation of last chance because if nothing else is working, you use this equation. Does that make sense? I don't like using it because the table is way easier. I've seen some people in life, I only do the quadratic equation, and that'd be like, I only use spoons to dig holes. Is digging a hole with the spoon okay? Never? What if the hole is 6 inches wide? Sure, a spoon is fine for that. Yeah? But you don't use it for everything. You don't use a quadratic equation unless you have to. All right? You do want to memorize it, all right? Because it is something that pops up all the time. If you're taking the STAR test, they do give it to you on the formula chart, but it's worth memorizing. Where the formula comes from is actually kind of interesting. It actually comes from this thing called completing the square. I haven't taught you how to complete the square yet, but once I do, I'll come back and I'll show you this equation where it comes from. Yeah, you can figure it out yourself. All right, so before you can do quadratic equation, you see how it has a square root part to it? Yeah. So you're going to have to be able to simplify radicals. All right. So remember, this is your first time doing this. You have to break down the number into its prime factorization. So what is 4? 2 times 2, right? And then basically, every time you have two of the same thing, you have a square. And since you have a square, what happens when you square root a square? What happened if I did that?
It's the number inside the
4. If I square root a square, it becomes a number. So I'm going to give you the 2-second version. Anytime you have a pair of something, they become 1 on the outside. And then if you take everything out of the square root, then you're done. And remember, square roots just mean a number times itself. So what makes 4? 2 times 2. What number times itself? 2. Make sense? All right, 18. What do I do first? Break it down. That would be 2 times 9, and 9 is 3 times 3. I have a pair of what? I have a pair of 3s, so every time I have a pair, I get a square. And when you square root a square, you get the number. So 3 square root of 2. Yeah? On example C, if you already know what to break it up into, like 10 times 10, you don't have to keep breaking it down. If you have a pair of something, take the pair out. So what could I take out right now? I could take out a 10. So as soon as I have a pair, just take it out. So that's just 10. All right, 15. If I'm doing 15, I break it down. That's 3 times 5. And what do I notice here? There's no pairs. If there is no pairs, that means it's simplified. So that's just root 15. Okay. Letter E, we talked about, I've talked about it a little bit with you guys before. You will notice sometimes when you do this quadratic equation and you do b squared minus 4ac part, you'll get a negative number. You shouldn't get it. You might get negative numbers tonight. If you do, you know you cannot solve it. All right. I'm curious. I got some math team in here. This part right here, b squared minus 4ac, what do we call that? What? Yeah, this is called the discriminant. And it actually tells you how many answers the question has. If the discriminant is greater than 0, then it's going to have 2 answers. If it's equal to 0, it has 1 answer. And if it's less than 0, it has no answers. So let's go back. Why would that be true? If you do the b squared minus 4ac part and you get a negative number like this, like negative 1, what number times itself makes negative 1? Nothing. Because either it's a positive times a positive, which makes a positive, or it's a negative times a negative, which makes a positive. It would have to be one negative and one positive, but that's a problem because if it's the square root means what number times itself. So you can't do it, right? You cannot take the square root of negative 1. If you type it into a calculator, it'll say what? I. So we abbreviate that as I. When you see that, we call it I. All right? That's far enough into that right now. You won't have those tonight, but if you did, if you get I tonight, there are no solutions to, if you get a negative number in the square root, there are no solutions to the problem. What does that mean? It means when you do a quadratic, you're going to learn how to graph them in the next chapter very soon. When you graph a quadratic, you're going to do this. When you find the zeros, which is what we're going to do tonight, you're finding the two places across the x-axis, yeah? Those are the zeros. If the discriminant, if the b squared minus 4ac is negative, it tells you, if I had this, let's say I had this graph right here, where does it cross the x-axis? Well, it doesn't. The x-axis is here. And that's what it's telling you. If the discriminant is negative, it's telling you it doesn't touch the x-axis. Does that make sense? All right. You don't have to go that far with this right now because we're not going to worry about that today. We're just going to solve some. All right. So if you ever get to square root of -1, what does that tell you about the answers to the math problem? They're going to be imaginary. They're going to have no real solutions. Yeah? All right. Let's do 60. How do we break down 60? 6 times 10, right? And what does 6 break down to? 2 times 3, and 10 breaks down to 2, 5. What do I have? I have a pair of 2, so I take out a 2. 2 root. Oh, why did I knock off the... Yeah, let's knock off the 2. 2 goes with 2, right? And then 2 root 15. All right? You can approximate these sometimes, and sometimes on your homework you're going to have to approximate them. You just type it into a calculator, figure out what it is. Okay? All right. First things first. Now we're going to start using the quadratic equation. What you want it to do is you want it to look like this. ax squared plus bx plus c. The x squared's first, the x is in the number. So I look at this first one. Is it in that order? Yes. Right? This is -1, right? Okay. Now you have two options here. Okay? You can say x is -1. What is b? 3. And c is -2. All I'm doing is I'm saying if it was ax squared plus bx plus c, those are the numbers, yeah? All right. Now what you're going to do is you're going to bust out with the quadratic equation. -b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac, all of that divided by 2a. It is not hard to do, it's just annoying. You're going to type in a whole bunch of numbers, yeah? Or do a whole bunch of math in your head, yeah? Okay, that's what you do first. That formula comes from something. It comes from completing the square. You don't know how to do that yet, but I'll show you in a few days. But once you complete the square, you'll realize this is what you're doing. All right? Okay, what is b? B is 3, so we're taking the negative of b. What's the negative of b? So that's -3 plus or minus. Remember we talked about the plus or minus the other day, right? Plus minus means two answers, right? All right, the square root. Now let me teach you something real quick. When you do the b squared part, this is the #1 mistake people make. When they get to the b squared part, they type it in a calculator and they miss it sometimes. I would square in my head. I would square that in my head. So what is b?
9.
B is 3, and then when we square it, it's 9. So I would write the 9 right now. You'll see why later on. Minus 4 times -1 times -2. All of that over 2 times -1. Okay, now when it gets to this point, this part right here, I would just type it into a calculator and look at it. Okay? We can do this in our head. -4 times -1. -4 times -1. +4 times -2. Okay, so what is this really saying? This is really saying, that's really saying -3 plus or minus the square root of 9 minus 8, right? Over what? -2? -4 times -1 times -2 is -8. So it's 9 minus 8, which is really what? So this is really -3 plus or minus the square root of 1 over -2. Is this hard? Is it annoying?
Yeah.
Yes, it's a whole bunch of just crunching of math, yeah? Then what we're going to do, well, what is the square root of negative 1? Or sorry, what is the square root of 1? 1. So this is really just saying negative 3 plus or minus 1 over negative 2. Now let me real quick explain why it's plus or minus. When you take the square root of a number, like the square root of 1, you say 1 is the answer. But wouldn't negative 1 work also? Negative 1 times negative 1 is what? Also 1. So either number would work. And that's why we do the plus or minus here. We do this plus or minus here because when we square root something, we actually get a positive version and a negative version of the number. That's where the split happens, yeah?
So that's our final.
All right, no, that's not our final answer because we're going to simplify it. This is where our split happens. Ready? So we're going to split it off into two math problems, the plus version and the minus version. So what are we going to write? Negative 3, what? Plus 1 over negative 2, and negative 3 minus 1 over negative 2. And then just do the math. What's negative 3 plus 1? Negative 2. What's negative 2 divided by negative 2? So one of the answers is 1. Negative 3 minus 1?
Negative 4.
Negative 4 divided by negative 2? 2. So what are my answers?
1 and 2.
1 and 2. So if I wanted to go and write my final answer, I'd say x equals 1 and 2. You could put it in bracket if you wanted, or set notation, right? Okay. It's just a bunch of number crunching. That's all it is. And if you're good with basic math, you can do it. But it's not fun. It's just work every time. There's no shortcuts to make it faster. You're just crunching through numbers. Does that make sense? And that's why we don't use it unless we have to, because I could have done this problem differently. All right, I don't want you to copy this, okay? Just want you to watch for a minute. What was the number? It was really, we're finding the zeros, right? So it's what? 0 equals negative 1x squared. What was the equation? Plus 3x what? Minus 2. All right. If I was solving this the other way, I would divide everything by negative 1, right? And I'd get 0 equals x squared minus 3x plus 2. Then I would make my table. 1x squared, positive 2, negative 3x, 1 and 1. What multiplies the 2 but negative 2 and negative 1? 1 times negative 2, negative 2. 1 times negative 1, negative 1. Negative 2, negative 1 is negative 3. I found it. My two factors are what? X minus 2 and x minus 1. I would have x, I'd have x minus 2 equals 0 and x minus 1 equals 0. What are my two answers? 2 and 1, which is exactly what I just did here. 2 and 1, which was easier, way easier to do the table. Yeah? So I don't use it unless I have to. Call it a sludge. It's a version of a sledgehammer. You don't want to use it unless you have to. Or if you just want to use it one time, maybe it could be fun. But if you're doing it all the time, it's just annoying math. Okay? Make sense? So when do I use it? Maybe they force me to use it. Or when nothing else is working. You try to do the table, you're like, whoa, nothing's working on the table. I don't know what it is. Then you bust out the sledgehammer and you quadratic equation it, yeah? All right, let's try it again. Ready? All right. First thing you can do is look at these coefficients and say, is there a common denominator? No. Then if that's the case, then I'm just going to write them. So A is what? 3, B is 8, and C is 4. Write the formula, negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac, all of that over 2a. All right, then just be careful. The negative of what? Negative b, so negative 8 plus or minus the square root. Square that in your head. What is that? What is it? 64 minus 4 times 3 times 4. And at this point right here, I don't mind if you grab a calculator and just do it, right? 64 minus 4 times, was it 3 times 4? 3 times 4 is 16. Okay, 16 over what? 2 times
Over 6.
3. So over 6 in a minute, right? So that becomes, what does this become? -8 plus or minus the square root of 16 over 6. What is the square root of 16? 4. So this becomes -8 plus or minus 4 over 6. Any of this hard? Yeah, it just takes a bit of time, right? All right, this is where the split happens, yeah? Why does the split happen? Why is it plus or minus? But why does the formula have plus or minus? You can get 4, but also -4 works. -4 times -4 also makes 16. That's why it's plus or minus, yeah? So I get what? -8 plus 4 over 6 and -8 minus 4 over 6. And then I just do the math. -8 plus 4. -8 plus 4. -4 over 6. That's going to be -4/6, which is -2/3. One of my answers is -2/3. My other answer, that'd be -8 minus 4 is -12 over 6, which is -2. So my answers are x equals -2/3 and -2, right? You can write it as a set notation if you want. Check this out. This is important. If you can't find out the answers, you pull out the quadratic equation, you do it. You will need it some pretty regularly in mathematics. Yeah, you'll use it. Sometimes, though, they're going to ask you not what the answers are. They're going to ask you what the factors were. They're going to ask you what, don't copy this, okay? So just watch. They're going to ask you, what were the factors? Well, those aren't the factors. Those are the answers, yes? Those are the zeros. So how could I find the factors? I feel like some of us are not even paying attention right now. If I'm going to call you out on a video, I will. And then for the next 20 years, people will watch this video and wonder why that one kid gets called out all the time. All right, don't copy this, just watch. So I have x equals -2/3. How can I work my way backwards to the factor? No. I got to, let's do this one first. This one's a little bit easier. X equals -2. Can't I bring the 2 back over and say x plus 2 equals 0? Which means one of the factors was x plus 2. Yeah? Could I find the other one? Well, what would I do? I'd bring the 2/3 over, so I'd get x plus 2/3 equals 0. What's the problem with that? We got to triple it, because now we don't normally have fractions there. So if I triple it, yeah, what do I get? 3x plus 2 equals 0. So my other factor was 3x plus 2. So if they ever ask you what the factors are, you can work your way backwards from the quadratic equation. All right? You won't have to be asked to do that tonight, but I did want to show it to you. Yeah? All right. Any questions there? All right, next problem. First, I would look at these coefficients, yeah? And I'd say, could I divide them by something? No. All right, I'm just going to plug it in. A, please. 4. B. -9. And C.
5.
All right. Really pay attention to this one. This is the one that people get messed up on, not because the math is hard, but because of one little mistake. All right. What do? Write the equation. How do I memorize that equation, Mr. Gillespie? You say it 100 times. -b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. If you say it 100 times, it'll be stuck in your head, like a really bad Taylor Swift song. You could say it to shake it off. No? Okay, never mind. I thought it was a great idea. The negative of b, what would it be? The negative of -9, so 9. Plus or minus the square root of?
-9 squared.
Now watch this. -9 squared. And I said, square that in your head, didn't I? Because if you type this on a calculator, -9 squared, what's it going to say? It's going to say -81.
It's positive 81.
And it should be positive 81. What's it doing wrong? Remember what we said? The parentheses. If you want to save yourself from that parentheses, just square it in your head. -9 times -9 is, if you're doing this at home, if you're watching this video some other time, that is a very common mistake. All right, -4 times A, please. And C, 5. I don't mind at that point if you want to multiply it in a calculator, but I think that's 80. Yeah, that's 80, isn't it? Over 2 times what? A is 4, so 2 times 4, right? All right, we're going to simplify this up here. That's going to be 9 plus or minus the square root of 81 minus 80. Oh, that's easy. Over 8, right? 81 minus 80 is? So this becomes 9 plus or minus the square root of 1 over 8. What is the square root of 1? If you already know it, you can just write it here and say that's 1, yes? 81 minus 1 is 1. I'm sorry, 81 minus 80 is 1. Square root of 1 is 1. So it's plus or minus 1. So what do I do now? I break it off into 2 math problems, right? What are my 2 problems? 9 plus 1 over 8 and 9 minus 1 over 8. 9 plus 1 over 8 is 10/8, which is 5/4. One of my answers is 5/4. My other answer is 9 minus 1 is 8 over 8, which is 1. Which tells me, if I get pretty numbers like that, tells me I could have done the table. When you get ugly numbers is when you're like, oh, the table wasn't going to work. We good there? All right, we are going to change this next one up. We're going to change this to 20. When you use the quadratic equation, you use it when you do the table, you're like, whoa, this table is not working. I don't know what it is. That's when you grab the quadratic equation, yeah? All right, before I start this problem, remember what we're actually doing. We're finding the zeros, right? Which means we're getting 0 equals 4h squared plus 26h minus 20, right? What could I have done to this problem? I could have divided by 2, yeah? And what would that have been? 2h squared plus 13h minus 10. Yeah? And that's the numbers I should use. If you use the original numbers, when you get your fraction at the end for the -b over 2a part, right? It'll just have to be simplified by some multiple of 2. All right, so just keep that in mind. It's better to do these. So 2, 13, and -10. Okay, this is going to be the first problem that we're going to do. It's not going to be pretty, okay? So it's going to be -b plus or minus the square root of, what's the formula? B squared minus 4ac. That b squared over minus 4ac part is called the discriminant for math later on, okay? 2a. All right, we're going to plug everything in. You ready? The negative of what? Which is? So -13 plus or minus the square root of 13 squared, 169. 169 minus 4 times A, 2 times C, -10 over 2 times 2. We good? Right there, grab a calculator. This is not a crunching of math problem. -169 minus what? 4 times, help me out, what was it?
4 times 2
Times
times -7.
249. So this becomes -13 plus or minus the square root of 249 over 4. All right, let me teach you something on an Inspire that you may not know. All right, they will ask you if you're in the state of Texas doing this, they're going to ask you on the STAR test, on the end of course test for algebra, to simplify a radical, right? Right? We're doing basically, they're going to ask you to do something like this up here, what we did on A through D. Yeah. What you're going to do, there's a cool thing you can do that you may not know. If you go menu, number, what do you see there that might be useful? Factor. If you put a number in like 100, look what it does. What's it do? It breaks it down for you. So if I type in 169, right? What was my number? Oh, no. What was my number?
249.
249. It'll say 3 times 83. I don't have to figure it out. First of all, does it have any pairs? No. What does that mean? It's simplified. On the STAR test, if you see an answer like this on the STAR test, and you could, if you see an answer like that in real life, and you could, you know they used a quadratic equation or they completed the square to solve that. Because you could not use a table to figure that out. What are my two answers? My two answers are negative 13 plus the square root of 249 over 4, and negative 13 minus the square root of 249 over 4. You guys get it? Those are my exact answers. If I plugged either one of those into my equation, I'll do one of them just so you can see it, right? I'm going to plug one in. So what was the answer? Negative 13 plus, oh, dang it, I did 14. Negative 13 plus the square root of 249 over 4. If I plug that in, if I store that for x, and I type in the equation, what was the original equation?
4h.
Well, it's x.
4x.
I'm going to do that. 4x squared what?
Plus 26x minus 14.
Minus
Or
4.
minus 20.
Minus what? 20?
20.
4 times, look what this is saying. 4 times 10 to the negative 12th. 4 times 10 to the negative 12th is 0.00000, 11 zeros, and then a 4. Point with 11 zeros and then a 4. What is that really close to? Oh, really? Okay, let me do it. Awkward silence. Point 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 4. What is that basically?
0.
How about 0? That's stupidly close to 0. And that's telling you that it's one of the zeros. That number is so small. Now, why is it off a little bit? Because it has to approximate. Because remember what's in there? The square root of 249. There is no number that makes the square root of 249. Yeah? You got it? All right. So that's what it's doing. All right? That's what it's doing. That's my two answers. If they want you to approximate it, then you would type those into a calculator and see what they equal. Got it? All right, so if I wanted to do that, I'll do that on the next problem, okay? I'm going to run out of room here. I don't know if you guys have room, but I'm running out of room. So, all right, example 6. We're going to change this one up too. Change this to 25. How about that? Let's make it 25. I want to see something. Hold on. What is it? 10x squared. What was the equation? 10x squared what? 10x squared what? Plus 20? Plus 25? Okay. I'm going to change it because I wanted to do something here. Oh, that's not helping me at all. All right, I'll just leave it. I'll do it on the last one. All right. Got it? Before I try to solve this, first of all, that should be B and not N. Okay. Wow, that is a terrible B. B. There we go, B. What should I do that equation before I try to solve it? Divide by 5. So if I divide them all by 5, I get what? What is B now? Well, what is A?
2.
2. B is
-7.
-7, and C is 5. Okay. All right, quadratic equation, negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. How do you memorize that? Say it a million times. Well, say it 100 times. Negative of what?
Negative of 7. 7, so it's 7.
Negative of -7, so 7. 7 plus or minus the square root. Square that in your head. What is it? 49 minus 4 times 2 times 5, right? And that is so close to being. I kind of want to change this really quick. Hold on. I'm going to change this. Because if that becomes like 4, then that goes negative, right? Yeah, I'll do it on the next one. Never mind. Over what? 2 times.
2 times -7.
Nope. 2 times.
2 times 2.
2 times 2. All right. So what do you got? 49. Let's see. 4 times 2 is 8 times 5 is 40. Ooh, I just accidentally picked the number that worked. All right, let's change it. 35. Change this to 35, please. I don't want it to work because I want it to be ugly. Because I gave you a whole bunch at work. So this is 7, right? So C is 7, which makes this C number 7, right? All right, so what do we got? We got 8 times 7 is 56. Oh, even better now. That's good. If I change that to 35, that becomes 7. Now when I do the math, watch this. When I do, what was it, 49 minus what?
49 minus 4 times 2 times 7.
Wasn't it 49? 49 minus 4 times 2 times 7. -7.
Oh.
So what do I get? I get 7 plus or minus the square root of -7 over 4. That right there is a problem. Why? You can't take a square root of a negative. All right? What does this mean? This means there are no solutions to this problem. Okay, there are solutions to this problem, but they're imaginary. Okay? If you really wanted to get into it, that'd be 7 plus or minus root 7i. We're not going to get into that. If you get a negative there tonight, that means there's no solutions. You with me? Any questions there? All right. And the last one, example. Oh, we got 2 more. How much time do I got? Am I doing okay? All right, let's change this. First of all, that's a typo. There should not be an equal sign there. And let's make this 30. Yeah, let's make it 30. Yeah, we're good. All right. All right. Is there a common denominator? No. So I couldn't divide by something. So what are my coefficients? 2, 5, -30. Negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. All right. Negative of?
-5.
So -5 plus or minus. Square that in your head. 5 squared is 25 minus 4 times 2 times -30 over 2 times, what is that, 2? All right, is this going to be negative? Is 25 minus 4 times 2 times -30 going to be negative? No, a double negative makes a positive, so we're safe this time, right? All right, type that into a calculator. Somebody go ahead and do it. What is that? Negative 25 minus 4 times 2 times -30. So we get what? Negative b plus or minus the square root of what? 255? 265, okay, thank you. Over 4, right? All right, I want to look at 265. You got a question? No, you cannot. It won't do it. I'll show you what to do with it in a minute, okay? That's a good question, though. I'll show you some you can do on a calculator. All right, 265, is that factorable? I don't know. We can check, right? Remember we had a way to check? Go to number, factor. 265, is there any pairs in there? No, all right? So I get 2 answers, right? 2 answers. I get -5 plus root 265 over 4, and I get -5 minus the square root of 265 over 4. Yeah? Okay, now she asked a good question. Can I do this on a calculator? There's a little thing you can do. So we make a fraction. What was it? -5 plus square root of 265 over 4? Was it 4? 4. Okay, so you do that, you get an approximation. So if I have to approximate it tonight, and sometimes they're going to make you, just round it to 2 decimal places. So 2.82, right? Or 8, wait. Yeah, 2.82. So this is about 2.82. If you plugged in 2.82 for x, you'd get really close to 0. Yeah? Now, if I want to do this quickly with an Inspire in my hand, what I can do here, this is something you can do. You can go up here, you can copy and paste that, and then just go in there and change that to a minus if it didn't do that. Change it to a minus, and you can just get the other answer real quick. You don't have to type the whole thing twice, yeah? Negative 5.32, right? That's close enough. So negative 5.32. Those are my two answers, yeah? Any questions there? All right, last problem. Oh, 2 more problems. All right. I think I'm going to just do one more. I think did we get the concept of this? All right, let's just change this to something. Let's change this to 40, okay? All right. What could I do if I wanted to make this easier for myself? I could divide everything by -1. That would get rid of all the negatives, right? I'm going to leave it because some people probably want to do that. So -3, -13, and -40. Negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. Keep writing it, right? The more times you write it, what will start happening? You'll start memorizing it, okay? The negative of -13. So 13 plus or minus the square root of. Do not type -13 squared into your calculator. You will miss it. What is 13? What is -13 times -13? Math team knows. 169 minus 4 times a. -3 times. Math easy on this problem. Anybody want to take a shot at why math is easy here? Yep. It's going to be negative. 169, negative times a negative times a negative is a negative, and it's way bigger than 169. Right? If you type it into a calculator, what do you get? 169 minus 4 times, what was it? Negative, oh, not minus, -3 times? Negative 30? Negative 40? Negative number. What does that mean? It means you square root this, you get a negative number. When you try to square root a negative, you get imaginary. So what does that mean? No solutions. Let me show you what that means on a calculator. If you graph this, and you can graph this, okay? If you graph this, I'm going to graph it on a calculator. This is the last thing we do, and then we're done, okay? If you tried to graph this on a calculator, I want you to see what happens. -3x squared, what was it, somebody? Minus 13x minus 40. And if I graph that, you don't see it. And the reason you don't see it, see it? There's the graph. You see it? Where did it cross the x-axis? Where did it cross here? It didn't. That's what it's telling you. It didn't cross the x-axis. Make sense? All right. That's why it doesn't have any solutions, because it doesn't have any zeros. Because where are the zeros found? Where are the zeros found? The zeros are found here, right? Those would be zeros. And it doesn't cross it, so that's why they're imaginary. Yeah? That's why they have no real solutions. Really, it says no real solutions. It does have solutions. They're imaginary. Yeah? All right. We won't only do an example 8, but that's the idea behind it. Is that hard? Is it annoying? Sure. Very annoying. All right.